Just a short time before we got on air here, the Lions did release Nate Sudfeld, QB2. This is from Ian Rappaport. Lions releasing quarterback Nate Sudfeld, who spent plenty of time as the number 2 quarterback. Now it appears that Hendon Hooker has won the job. Sudfeld has impressed plenty in practice without a ton of game reps and will find his way into a practice squad at the very least. Now, I don't believe the Lions officially make any of these announcements until they all come out at once at 4 o'clock. Our show is over at that time. So we do have some of these cuts. Let's first stick with the Sudfeld, if we could. Are you surprised by that part of it, Braylon Edwards, that Sudfeld cut Hendon Hooker number 2?
No, I'm not at all. I think at the end of the day, Lions have found their quarterback in Jared Goff. You know you're good there. You're not really necessarily looking for a guy to press Jared Goff. You want to find a number 2 just in case. You saw what you saw out of Hendon Hooker. You know what you drafted him in the 3rd round to do. Maybe be a guy that you trade not trade, but kind of keep in the wings like a Jordan Love or like an Aaron Rodgers in those situations when his day comes to arrive. So Nate Sudfeld time was up. I don't think anybody here believed that he could be a successful backup quarterback or a solid backup quarterback. And when you build your team to such a form now where we know we're headed to the NFC Championship, it's just a matter, are we getting by the NFC Championship to the Super Bowl? Are we going to win the Super Bowl? Now it's more a predicate than ever that you got to have a backup quarterback. They didn't necessarily care before. But now you're playing for a lot more this year.
Maz, you were out. I think, Kenny, you and I were talking about this, and I didn't care if you put Nate Sudfeld number 2 and Hendon Hooker number 3. Heaven forbid if Jared Goff goes out, the guy that was going to get tapped on the shoulder was going to be Hendon Hooker. I mean, that's who they were going to go with. That is the player that gave them the best opportunity to win a game. I think, anybody, God bless Nate Sudfeld, he might know that playbook inside and out, but the ability to execute those plays were just not there. Is Hendon Hooker the guy that we believe could lead this team to a Super Bowl right now? No. They are probably, there's no doubt they're in trouble without Jared Goff. I do believe if you're telling me that it's Sudfeld or Hooker, that Hooker gives you the best opportunity to win the game. Still a long way to go, but you see some potential there.
Yeah, they drafted him 3rd last year. You know they were going to find a spot for him. So in a perfect world, Jared Goff's here 3 more years at least, leading to a Super Bowl championship, and then there's your Jordan Love waiting in the wings. Now, I understand Hendon Hooker's older than Jordan Love.
76 years old.
Yeah, we get that. And in a perfect world, he's 3-4 years younger, but he's not. The kid has got a good head on his shoulders. The kid would have been a 1st-round pick had he not torn his ACL. Yeah. There's no question about it. And he might be starting for someone right now, but it ain't going to be for this Lions team. And knock wood, this is Jared Goff's team. Lead us to the promised land, and then whatever happens after that, you're playing with house money. 3rd guy, it could be Jake Fromm, who was impressive in camp.
Who, by the way, I thought Fromm played better than Sudfeld.
Absolutely. He did. No question about it. And Dan Campbell went out and said, hey, that Fromm played really good, played well. I like what I saw out of him. He might have earned himself the practice squad bump. There are other quarterbacks that have been released. You got Mike White out there, Bailey Zappi, guys like that. Desmond Ridder is out there. There's going to be a lot of guys being picked up here in the next week. We'll see how it goes. See if the Lions go with Fromm at number 3, or do they bring back Sudfeld at number 3?
Just being honest and keeping it simple, I think they saw enough from Sudfeld that they saw all they needed to see.
100%.
Over the span of the last 2 years, they've seen what they've seen. They've seen an offseason last year, seen him during the season. And they saw him in the offseason this season. They seen him through another training camp. They saw him actually have a training camp battle in Hendon Hooker versus himself, and he didn't play as well as Hendon Hooker. How many years do you need? I think they're in the mind now, hey, you know what? Let's get another young guy, Jake Fromm, see what it is, see if we can see something with him, because at the end of the day, all our focus is going to be on Hendon Hooker anyway. It doesn't need to have a guy that he's not going to step in and do anything for you. You know when you know, kind
of. Some of the other cuts that we believe we know so far. Ty Summers, who had a nice game, a nice preseason. Scott Daly, Shane Zylstra, the tight end. Caden Davis, wide receiver. Mitchell Agudy, Zonovan Knight, Stephen Gilmore. So those are some pretty big names. I was going to go to him next. Donovan Peoples-Jones. We have speculated just by what our eyes have told us through this preseason, that Donovan Peoples-Jones was not going to make this team and probably shouldn't have. I posted yesterday that I feel terrible for Donovan Peoples-Jones and his family. He's a great guy with a great family. Back in your hometown, I hate the situation for him, but he didn't earn a roster spot. And I think when you're, playing for an NFL organization, you've got to earn that spot. I don't believe he did. While I feel bad for him, I understand and believe in that decision.
Yeah, the way I look at it is like this. Look, he's my U of M brother. As I'm rocking and rolling, you'll find out in the second hour why I'm so heavily Michigan-based today. But it sucks. But at the end of the day, Ryan, like sometimes you need a swift kick in the you-know-what. And I'm not saying this is his, but it could be. And with that sense, this is how it happened. This is kind of how it happened to me. You go from starting, get traded, starting again on another team to now you got to fight a little harder in training camp to be the starter. Now you're third wide receiver, and now you're fighting just to make the squad. So the more and more you face those challenges, how do you handle them? How do you accept them? I think this is a good coming home period. Come home, DPJ, get involved with Michigan a little bit in terms of going up there to work out, see what's going on, like who you are, what do you want to do, what do you want to be moving forward in the league. Like this, sometimes you need that kick in the butt for you to say, hey, I got to put more work in, I got to put more effort in. Maybe he wasn't putting forth the effort, but maybe this is what he needed.
Yeah, because the difference between you and him, he's 25 years old.
A lot of time left.
Much older, so yeah.
Listen,
a lot of time left.
They're probably going to keep. You thought they were going to keep 5 wide receivers. They're down to 4 right now.
Yeah.
Isaiah Williams looks like he's making the team, unless something unforeseen happens. There are receivers out there. And I'm going to start with Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson's out there, big, tall guy, 11 years, had a great preseason. He's healthy. Panthers waived Terrence Marshall. That's a former second-round pick. There are guys that are going to be popping up left and right. Titans cut a couple of guys. You're going to see a lot of meat out there on the waiver wire. I don't know who they're going to go with. I have no idea. But look back, they could have kept Josh Reynolds. And I don't know what the hell happened.
He wanted more money. He was asking for
$2
more million.
$42 million are under the cap. He went for like $9 million for like 2 years.
But they thought DPJ would work as well.
But it didn't.
Yeah.
Josh Reynolds was the play here. He was the play to bring back, and now they're going to be scrambling for someone else's scraps. That's all I got to say.
You're not wrong about that, Maz. I mean, when you look at what impact Josh Reynolds had last year on third down and in the red zone, I believe something crazy like 90% of his catches were either for a first down or a touchdown.
Yes.
And that's a big hole. That's a big void to fill.
Yeah. Huge security blanket for Goff.
He was, and you will be scrambling. Now, you took a gamble probably on a one-year deal for DPJ, and it didn't work out. You're not going to hit 100%, but let's see what happens now. Do you go out and get an Allen Robinson? Just a couple of guys, right? I mean, Allen Robinson's mom, by the way,
we spotted her.
We love her.
At the Calvin Johnson
golf outing. She was there. And we talked, gave her a big hug. She's an awesome person. I think it would be great to bring Allen Robinson here. And really, it's a guy that has, and this is just one example, Bray. This is a guy that has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He wanted a big money deal, really didn't get one, went out to L.A., 1-year deal, traded, cut, whatever he was. I think he was cut and signs on, doesn't make the team. This is a guy with a chip on his shoulder that I think those are the types of players that the Lions do like. Guys that are on prove-it deals and see what you got.
Just getting back to Josh Reynolds for a second, I don't agree with the move. Should have bring him back, should have kept him. Then you don't have to worry about these obstacles, the wide receiver in the training camp and getting close to the season. Josh Reynolds was a guy that was the third wide receiver, and this Detroit Lions team got a lot of opportunities, made a lot of plays, and has a great track record with Jared Goff. But that said, in the biggest moment, the Detroit Lions' modern present, he drops 2 passes, not one, but he drops 2. He drops 2 huge passes. Huge passes.
I don't think it earns him a ticket out of town,
but
though.
Maz, at the same time, you bring him in, and now you run the risk of an individual that will be in his mind. Like, you had to pay him this offseason. It wasn't like a contract that he was already under. You would have had to pay him. But now you run the risk of what's his mindset going to be? Is every moment he catches or tries to catch a pass going back to an NFC Championship game? He's a third wide receiver to drop 2 passes that kept you out of the Super Bowl. Now, I know it falls on the whole of the Detroit Lions, but in those moments, both of those would have been first downs that would extend it, and the Lions win. You can't have remnants of that over and I'm telling you, like Allen Robinson moving forward to his you bring up a good point. He's from here. He's born here. He used to be a stud wide receiver. At one point, we were talking about paying him the bag. Hell, the Bears did pay him the bag to a certain extent, and now he's looking for a team. You come here, he still has number one skill. Maybe he'll want to fight, and maybe being that third wide receiver will humble him in a cool spot.
Well, I was going to add Kadarius Toney now to the list.
He's a
because
bum.
he just got.
We good.
I understand, but does he have NFL talent?
No, he's a washout.
He's got NFL speed, but not NFL hands.
He's been released,
Don't even
so
bring
I'm
him
just
up.
adding him to the list.
Giants wasted a number 1 pick on that bum.
Yeah, I would look at a Tim Patrick. A Noah Brown was also cut from the
Brown's a good
Texans
one.
too.
Yeah.
So
Tim
yeah.
Patrick's
He
fragile.
actually did okay last
He
year
is
for the
fragile,
Texans.
but
So, go ahead, please.
you know the Lions' record with injured players. That's all I was.
Tim Patrick's the Denver, the Broncos.
Yeah, he'll be gone
They
soon.
say he's a great leader in that locker room. I did or something like that. Kind of the same identity that the Lions have in that locker room.
Now,
So,
just as a point of order here, a lot of people in the chat, too many to name right now, are talking about how last year Josh Reynolds was essentially the number 2, and you do anticipate Jameson Williams to come in this year and be that number 2.
Yeah.
I think with the information you have right now, anyway, would you like to see a wide receiver room of Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Khalif, and Isaiah Williams, or Josh Reynolds, Khalif, J-Mo, and you might be splitting hairs there.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think
I don't think I am.
You might not be, because we've seen it in tough spots.
Yeah.
Not to mention those 2 drops, huge drops that probably cost the Lions a Super
he's a
Bowl
much
opportunity.
better player than those moments, and I don't want to be short-sighted because I've dropped past the moments, so I don't want to be like that. I'm not trying to be.
He was upset with the fans, too, by the way, of Detroit. He mentioned on his Twitter back in the day, hey, all you guys are against me here, blah, blah. Remember that. He had that chip on his shoulder as well. Maybe that was why they didn't bring him back. I don't know.
You're talking about a team that's waited to be in that moment for a very long time, and they blamed him. Now, whether it's fair, who cares about fair or wrong? A lot of people blamed him. A lot of people said things to him. So that's tough. That's tough to overlook and overcome.
And I do think, when you talk about, Maz, when you talk about the Lions keeping 4 wide receivers, they might not bring anybody in.
Right.
I mean, maybe they just keep 4 wide receivers and the number grows somewhere. Maybe you keep 4 running backs instead of 3.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
Gibbs and Laporta are going to catch a lot of balls.
Exactly.
Right. Well,
a lot.
They also don't go 4 wide a lot. The Lions really stay in 2 wide receiver set for the most part.
Well, again, maybe you're deciding between keeping Craig Reynolds versus a 5th wide receiver.
Correct.
No, now you keep 4 running backs and 4 wide receivers instead of 5 wide receivers, 3 running backs, because Vaki's making the team.
Yeah.
Reynolds is making
You
it.
probably keep Craig Reynolds.
Right, exactly.
Reynolds
So,
is making it no matter what.
Is Craig Reynolds better than wide receiver 5 on this team?
Probably,
Yes.
yeah.
Probably more useful.
And they're going 3 tight ends. They got rid of Shane Zylstra, so they're no longer going 4. They got Keith. They still have Mitchell.
James Mitchell,
they got Brock Wright, who they pay, and obviously they got Big Sam Laporta.
Yeah, and Mitchell's an interesting choice too. I mean, I almost think Shane Zylstra probably earned the spot over James Mitchell.
Right.
That could be a
One guy was
thing.
drafted, one guy wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I do think that's. I always say I don't think coaches cut players that are better than the ones they keep, but I do think there's a business end to some of this stuff.
Watch out for a player like James Mitchell. The only reason I say that, I've seen this before where a player is super talented, but he's just not better than the guy that's in front of him right now, and he's not necessarily the thing that could be, he can't be Brock Wright. Like, he can be Sam Laporta, and he's probably really good, but he ain't better than Sam Laporta. That's why he's still on the team, and Shane Zylstra isn't. I guarantee you, they'll have a couple plays, a couple nuances for James Mitchell. Guys like that don't secretly make the team. He probably has some skill, and you're going to see it sometime this year.
You got to catch the ball.
I think one of the biggest intrigue storylines today that will be today, and I have not seen any news on this yet, is what do the Lions do with James Houston? If you hear what Dan Campbell said after the game, it was almost like he was agonizing about this decision coming up. Here's what he had to say after the game against the Steelers.
Into an overall evaluation.
Yeah, and it's a good question because, we really didn't have him a lot of camp. He was hurt, so we didn't get to see him at Kansas City this week. And so, he's probably had maybe half of training camp, if that, somewhere in there. And so you still have to go off the totality of what it is. We understand he's a year 3 player that, we have to take the body of work that has taken place in practice against our very good tackles. We got 2 of the best tackles in the league, and that he has to go against. And you take those, and then you take a little bit of what you saw today. Okay, well, what does the health look like? Can he still move? Is it? But I think, look, that's going to be a hard decision for Brad and myself. It is, one way or another. Because that's kind of what you're asking. Is it enough? I don't, and it's hard to say that right now. I mean, this will be a lot of things that we hash out between the 2 of us, the coaching staff, all of it. Like we got to make sure we're seeing it clearly.
That might be as agonizing a decision, and I'm sure it's made by now, and those conversations
He's
have been
making it.
had.
He's going to make this.
I think he's going to make it too.
Yeah.
But just the point, Bray, that we're even having those conversations on James Houston goes to show you how deep this roster is.
Yeah, 100% how deep this roster is and how much of an enigma James Houston still is. He got those 8.5 sacks in 9 games 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just think, he got them 2 years ago. Then they played a whole season without them because he was injured. He didn't get a chance to kind of round into form, and now here we are. He's injured in training camp yet again going into year 3. So you really don't know what his progression is. What is he? Is he going to be some version of that first year and a little bit better, or is he going to take regression steps because he hasn't been on the field? So it is a tough decision because what we saw in 2022, hella good, man. That looked like something that we could have on this team, like something that could help Aiden on the other side. But as years have stacked on, he's stacked on injuries, maybe lack of being out there, confidence in what he's going to do, and maybe they didn't see what they saw in 2022.
Don't forget they lost Kaminsky for the year. He's on IR. Agude, who was a leading tackler in the preseason, they let him go. That was agonizing for them. He might be a practice squad player.
And by the way, Agude, he's one of the guys that Dave Burkett believed was going to make it in his final 53.
He had 11 defensive
DLs,
players, and it's down to 10 now. So, like he said, remember he said 5 or 6 roster spots were going to be available? I mean, I can't wait to see what the final piece is. One
of the frustrating things with Houston, too, going back to something you said, Bray, is availability.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's an old saying in sports, the best ability is availability. And James Houston is a player. Nobody's ever questioned the talent. People have questioned the reliability, talking about health, and the drive. Because this is a player that is basically a third down only player.
Yeah.
And had some work to do to be on the field all 3 downs, or at least be a multi-down player, somebody that you can trust.
Updated defensive chart as of 5 minutes ago.
As of 5 minutes ago.
Depth chart updated. Yep.
Where'd we get this?
Our lads, which one of the best.
They are.
Okay.
Yes.
And
hard to see.
it's got DJ
You
Reader
can zero in
it.
on that.
Yeah, I'll zoom in for you.
I was just trying to see if we see James Houston's name on it. I'm far away from me. I don't see James Houston's name.
There it is right there, 41.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Third team behind
and
pass.
again, nobody's ever questioned his athletic ability.
Yeah.
You question the reliability and the drive.
He's had one good run, right?
Yeah.
He had one good push
Right.
for those 8 sacks. Other than that, he's been invisible with injuries and other stuff. So he was a project. Remember, they cut him. They cut him and brought him back. And they were like, oh, thank God we brought him back because he gave us those 8 sacks. But he was originally cut from this team.
And for these guys that are cut, in years past, you just get used to the guys that you see, right? You get used to the guys that you see in your uniform, and you say, oh, if they don't make the team, they'll make the practice squad, right? Well, they'll make the practice squad. Well, many of these players who get cut today for the Detroit Lions will not make the Lions practice squad because they will be on other rosters around the league in the NFL because this team has accumulated as much talent as we have seen one Detroit Lions team accumulate in a long, long time. And I think that's a very healthy spot to be in if you're a Detroit football fan These are players that are NFL caliber players. I fully anticipate a guy like Shane Zylstra being on an NFL roster. Zonovan Knight is a guy that finds himself. Stephen Gilmore, I think, played well. He's done well. Caden Davis opened some eyes. Mitchell Agude. Some of these guys that are getting cut.
I like Zonovan Knight. I really do.
I do too. He runs hard. He runs hard. Sutfeld, probably practice squad guy. I'm just not sure. There's so many guys around the league now. You know, I mean, like you mentioned today, Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter is a former first-round pick, is he not?
He beat the Lions.
Second round, maybe?
Second round. Second round. Beat
Same thing.
There's guys
And
out
they traded
there.
a
How about the
receiver.
Zappy Hour? He beat the Lions just a
Bailey
few years
Zappi's
ago.
terrible, man.
I'm just saying, he
I
beat the
understand.
Lions.
I remember.
That's what
That was
I
the
remember.
worst. That was the worst game in this
That was
era.
30-0, wasn't it?
That's when we realized we didn't
We
really
got
have
crushed that
That's
game.
when we realized how bad the kicking was.
Yes.
And that's when Darren Campbell was like, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm going for it. I'm going. Yeah, you're funny. You mentioned this, guys, but once again, you talk about how good the Lions' depth chart is now. Zonovan Knight is a guy that can play. Fast running back,
bet he
gets to the
can.
open wing. Like, the Jets really liked him. They did not want to give him up last year. Here the Lions are a year later having to release him. Why do you have to release him? Jahmyr Gibbs is arguably the best running back in the NFL, or has a chance to be the best running back in the NFL. David Montgomery is the best short yardage and goal running back in the NFL, and short yardage downs. David Montgomery can run with the best, and probably is the best of. And then Craig Reynolds is a guy that you trust. When you trust players, where's he going to fit into that? He's not catching passes out of the backfield. Oh, by the way, we got Sione Vaki to do that now.
Wow.
It's just nowhere for good players to play sometimes at these positions, especially on that offensive side.